that Dr. Heiser postured himself as the arbiter of truth, as the individual who is bringing forth this information regarding a Deuteronomy 32 worldview and bringing forth that position as his own. Hey guys, Brandon here. I wanted to make a quick video because there were some things in the video against Dr. Michael Heiser and the videos that I've seen against Dr. Michael Heiser that rubbed a lot of people who were fond of his teaching and fond of him as a person, an individual, that rubbed them the wrong way. That's to say the least. On the other extreme, it made people extremely angry, really. And I think you can see that in some of their conversations and the way that they approach the topic. Some people have jumped down my throat for not being as angry and being willing to slander the people who I believe slandered him. And so one of those things was in the Doreen et al. Video. It was asserted that Dr. Heiser postured himself as the arbiter of truth, as the individual who is bringing forth this information regarding a Deuteronomy 32 worldview and having a context that is the context of the biblical authors of an ancient Near Eastern biblical author in the Old Testament and a first century Jew in the New Testament, bringing forth that position as his own. And two things get attacked in that. One, his character gets attacked. It's like, oh, you're acting like one of these little false preachers that we see on Instagram reels that are going around blowing on people and they fainting and stuff like that. Like you're this person to be highly praised. And that's the complete opposite of what Dr. Heiser postured himself to be. Number two, from an intellectual standpoint, he never said anything that could take the hint of that. But not only that, he said explicitly the opposite. And I'm going to highlight that here. I'm going to show you their claim, and I'm going to let Dr. Heiser speak for himself. So let's get into it.
Scripture. Now, Heiser's premise seemed to be that he was the one who found this, and this was something that nobody else had seen, and he was here to enlighten us all.
Gigantic problem, right? Because whoever wrote First Enoch knew about it.
Right.
It probably wasn't new with him. The early rabbis knew about this. The early church fathers, especially the pre-Augustinian, pre-St. Augustine, late 4th, early 5th century, those guys before, they knew about this. And the higher critical school also knew about it. That school of the more left-leaning, more liberal approaches, methodologies, etc., toward the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament. So I'd love to be able to distinguish Dr. Heiser with that honor, but sorry, he's real late to the party.
Dr. Heiser never desired that honor. That's, I think, when you hear that type of stuff, that's what people will respond and say, hey, this is getting slanderous now. What is once supposed to be a disagreement on biblical theology and interpretation has become a principled moral disagreement, really, where Heiser is a liar. Because I've talked to a friend regarding this video, and the response is that we never use those words. We never called him a heretic. We never did this. But what would you want us to infer from that? Like if I'm listening to Dr. Heiser's teachings, if I'm sitting under him as a teacher, if I'm reading his books, if I'm watching his YouTube videos, and you say that, am I supposed to just go to sleep that night thinking, oh, well, okay, well, I'll change my mind. I thought Dr. Heiser was the first one and only one to know this. I'll change my mind. Or am I meant to infer, oh, this dude's a charlatan. He's posturing himself as the arbiter of truth regarding all this stuff. He's presenting himself as the keys. He holds the keys to this information and he doesn't. This stuff comes way before him and he left it out. He didn't keep that. He didn't give that to us. Why on earth would he keep that from us? What are his motivations? Those are the natural thoughts that flow from those assertions. Obviously, come on. It's the only reason it would want to be shared. But neither here nor there, because not only did that not ever come out of Dr. Heiser's mouth, it's just not true. It's not true. I'm not going to speak too much on it. Let's let Dr. Heiser speak.
Nothing in the book, nothing that I've just told you is sort of unique to me. I'm not making anything up. This is standard academic, peer-reviewed, scholarly material that I think we can all handle, you can handle, and it's decipherable. Along with The Unseen Realm.
That's his promotion of his, I would say, most popular book, The Unseen Realm. That was at the beginning of his promotion. So, if you had been following Dr. Heiser, then that was a relatively recent book. And he leads off with that in the promotion. It's not new to me. Not only is it not new to me, it's peer reviewed and it's existed beforehand. And not only does he say that, but in his actual book, if you read The Unseen Realm, he has footnotes linked to the sources where these arguments come from. So the pre-Augustinian church father stuff, First Enoch, as a matter of fact, it's so ironic that Dr. Nunnally used First Enoch as someone who knew this before. Obviously, it's not Enoch who's the author, it's pseudepigraphical work, but the author of First Enoch as someone who knew it before Heiser, because that's the only reason First Enoch is in the conversation, is because it lays credence to the worldview of those we are trying to interpret. That's important. That is important. And so I know one big gripe is that Dr. Heiser is pointing to First Enoch as a canonical text, and he never says that. As a matter of fact, he says the opposite. He says the opposite. So people are frustrated that it seemed to be little to no due diligence done regarding Dr. Heiser's work. And the only things they're being met with is, I have problems with this, or this thing seems dangerous, or I don't know. And it's not adding up. It's not adding up. If this is just within the realm of biblical theology, then present your argument. Present your argument for Genesis 6. Present your argument for Genesis 1:26. And we've heard those things in that video. Maybe some pseudo argument, but it's more so a refutation of what Dr. Heiser, quote unquote, said. But what they were refuting in their video is not what Dr. Heiser was saying. That's not what he would promulgate regarding the teaching. That's not what he would promulgate. I want to show one more clip to clear some things up, because one of the problems that a lot of people have with Dr. Heiser, and another assertion that's false, is that Dr. Heiser promotes polytheism. Let's listen in.
Nevertheless, you have 6 different things referred to as Elohim. Some of them, Shadim, disembodied human dead, gods of the nations, the lesser Elohim of the council, the sons of God, are not at the same level that the God of Israel is. But nevertheless, we have the term Elohim used of that particular deity. Now, Yahweh is distinguished in biblical theology as, again, the creator, the sovereign, omnipotent, almighty, omniscient, all these things, but none of that comes along through, none of that is transmitted through the term Elohim. The way we learn that are other descriptions, other episodes in the Old Testament. None of that is really packed into the term Elohim. Elohim is used of a wide variety of things. So back to our question, what about monotheism? Well, what you really have going on in the biblical data, if we sort of collected all this, Elohim actually is a term you would use to describe an entity who is by nature disembodied, who lives in the spirit world. In other words, Elohim is a term you would use to sort of label something as to where it belongs, not what its attributes are, but where it belongs.
And what he's highlighting here, in addition to actually having an explicit conversation about whether or not this is monotheistic or polytheistic, something that is right here for the plucking, right here on YouTube, you could have found this. But what he's addressing is that our word God, what it does is it transmits Yahweh's attributes into the word, so that whenever you hear the word not attributed to Yahweh, you think that you are being instructed to transmit those attributes to whatever we're assigning that word to. And Dr. Michael Heiser is highlighting that that's false from a biblical theological standpoint. When it comes down to the Hebrew word Elohim, it is not assigning attributes to what is being described. It's designing locale, where it dwells. A spirit dweller is what it's doing.
This is why Elohim is used of all these different things. They all have one thing in common. They are disembodied spirit beings who inhabit the spirit world. That's all Elohim means. It's sort of like a term of location or address. Now, in that realm, Yahweh, of course, is part. Yahweh is an Elohim, but no other Elohim is Yahweh.
That's a refrain he has in probably all of his works. I'm probably wrong, but I want to stress the point that you can find what he views about your apprehensions anywhere. You can find it. And so, I'll let him finish out.
That is what an Orthodox Israelite would have believed. That's what a biblical writer would have believed about the God of Israel. There's no attribute equivalence, but they all are Elohim because they all live in the spirit world. Now, monotheism is actually a late modern term. It was a term coined in the 17th century. At the time, its antonym, its opposite, was not polytheism, it was atheism. Theism, no God. And then monotheism, well, there is a God, is sort of the way it was used. That modern term is kind of clunky when it comes to trying to use it to describe what we just talked about, the multiplied use, the plural use of Elohim. So we have a disconnect culturally and historically, but not theologically. While monotheism is kind of a clunky term to describe the biblical data, the spirit of the term monotheism is very much intact and consistent.
So I think that's good enough. I'm going to post a link to this video here in my video. But what I wanted to highlight, once again, aside from whether or not people want to agree that the assertions made in the video were, in the spirit of the election coming up, baseless. They were unequivocally baseless. And I think that when it comes down to even the inferred shots at his character, the video could have done without that. And those two were baseless. They're baseless. So I'm perplexed by it. I'm perplexed by it. Maybe that's why I keep doing videos over it. Just to bring it to people's minds that, hey, this is a discussion amongst Christians that we can open our Bibles and look to. And it doesn't have to step outside of the realm of brothers and sisters discussing biblical theology. But I do want to warn you, it does challenge your tradition. I'm not talking about theological tradition. I'm talking about your applicative tradition, how you have applied your knowledge of Christianity throughout history, how you know that stuff. I'm talking about like songs that say we three kings, so therefore you believe that there were three kings that visit Jesus. And then when somebody comes and tells you, hey, the Bible doesn't tell you how many kings there were, and if they were kings, then you start to get your pants in a bunch. And so, well, this is not really a huge scenario. It's, but you do need to know that you ought not be bound by your tradition. Let the scriptures dictate what you know. Let the scriptures dictate what you know. That is what the passion of Dr. Michael Heiser was, and that's what you'll find in his work. Like and subscribe to this video if you enjoyed it. If you hated it, please like and subscribe, so that you can comment. You can spam the comment section, but no, jokes aside, leave me your thoughts. Share with me your thoughts in the comment section. Share this video, get other people's thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Parker, how do you glorify God?
By yes with him and doing what he says.
Really? Why should you glorify God?
Because he made me and he takes care of me.
Is there more than one God?
No, there's only one God.
You have to understand how things are up here.